Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. Tracy here, and I'm going to show you how to make this baby beanie. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Today I'm going to show you this newborn one. I have a few others. I've got a preemie beanie that I'm going to be doing a separate tutorial for, and this one is more of a 3 to 9 months in size as well. So I'm going to do all of those, but today I'm going to concentrate on this newborn. So say 0 to 3 months. It's not a huge hat. I didn't want it to be big. I wanted it to fit newborn size, and it is a kind of granny stitch. Nice and simple. So I've made this with a very thin DK weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook for this one. So if you just bear with me a second, I'm going to clear the stuff out the way and get ready to start the tutorial. You'll also need a darning needle, although there are only 2 ends, and some scissors. And I'm going to clear this away, and when I get back I'll be ready to start with you. Okay, so this hat I made with this variegated yarn, and I'm going to make this one out of a nice plain colour so it's much easier for you to see. And to start this, I'm going to do a magic loop. Now if you don't know how to do the magic loop, my one is very easy. So I'll just stopping my yarn from spinning around like a lunatic. I've got a wool genie. So you need to make a nice long tail, because when you want to sew that in, you want to make sure you've got enough to do that. Now that hat took, that was a 50-gram ball, and I didn't even use half of it. Sorry, I was going to show you how to do it. So I make a loop, just a simple loop, insert my hook and bring the yarn through. Helps to bring the yarn through when you're sewing it though. And there you've got it. Simple. I'll show you one more time. You make a loop, and there you are, and you insert your hook, bring the yarn through, and do 1 chain, and we're done. Okay, so into my loop I'm going to do 12 UK treble crochets, which are double crochets in the US. And to start with, I'm going to do my first one as a stacking stitch. So it's a stacked double crochet or a stacked single crochet in the US. So you just insert your hook, pull up your loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 of those loops. And then in this vertical stitch at the side there, just that one, you push your hook in and you yarn over and pull up your loop. So you've got 2 on your hook again, yarn over and pull through both of those, and it's my first stitch. So I prefer to do that than 2 chain. If you don't get on with the magic loop, then if you just do 2 chain and work into the first one, it really does work out just the same. So in this ring I want 12 UK treble crochets or US doubles. So just bear with me a second, because I kept hitting my equipment and that's annoying, so I've just moved it a little bit. So this will count as my first one, obviously, so I just want 12. Now I'm just not going to, this is a 4mm hook, so they're not going to be huge stitches. This yarn that I'm using is Peter Pan's DK, so again it's about the same thickness as the one I was using, this yarn here. Okay, so I'm going to do 12. I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back to you once I've done my last, because it's difficult when you're trying to count if someone else is doing that at the same time. Okay, I think I've got my 12, so I'm going to pull this just a little bit tighter, and I'm going to just check. So you count the V's: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, and there it is. That's my number 12. So I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch. Now because I've done the stack, it's easy, well I say it's easy, but I made it a little bit tight. It's easy to get into the 2 loops. You've got 2 loops to go into, exactly the same as any other stitch, so not a tight chain. Okay, so now you can pull your ring closed and we'll secure that later. It will work its way undone, but never mind. So now we are going to do a increase in every single stitch. So this is the one that I've just slip stitched into, and I'm going to do my stack yet again in the same stitch. And you think I'd have learnt by now not to keep doing it too tight, wouldn't you? Never mind. But I've gone into that same stitch, and I'm going to pull up my first loop, yarn over, pull through both of those, again into this vertical one here, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over and pull through both of those. So now I've got my first stitch, and I'm going to do another one in the same place, and I'm going to do 2 in every single stitch around. UK treble, US double crochets, nice and simple. This kind of tutorial does assume that you know how to make all of the stitches. If not, I do have an absolute beginner's course with all of the stitches that you might need. Okay, so once again, it'll be a bit boring watching me do 2 in every single stitch. So I'm going to pause the video, and I will catch up with you when I get to my very last one, and I will have a total of 24 stitches. Okay, so I'm all the way back. I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch again, go through those 2 loops of my first one. I don't normally struggle, it's just that I've got a camera between, so it's not that easy. Okay, so now I'm going to do another stack to get me up to the right height. I don't do the two chains anymore. They don't look like a stitch, and it's so much nicer. Okay, so now I'm going to increase every other stitch. So each time we go round at the moment, we are increasing by 12. Obviously that was 12, 1 in each makes it 24. So we're going to do 2 in the next one. So our increase in the next stitch. And then we're going to do a single one. And then our next stitch will be an increase. And we're going to do that all the way around. So because we began with a single one, our last stitch will be an increase. So I'm going to pause it again, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to my very last stitch, which will be my increase. Okay, so we've made it all the way round, and now we've got our 36 stitches. I'm just going to slip stitch into my stitch to form the circle. Now I'm going to do another stack in this one again to get me up to the correct height. And because we had an increase in our second stitch, this time I'm going to increase in my first stitch. The reason I do that is because it stops it from taking on the shape of kind of a hexagon with having the increases in the same spot as much as possible. So now we're going to do 2 singles and an increase, 2 singles and an increase, go all the way around. And when I get back to this here, these 2 stitches will be singles because we started with an increase, and we will have 48 stitches. So I'm going to pause it then, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to the start again. Okay, so I've made it all the way around. I've got my 48 stitches, and this across will now kind of measure almost 4 inches. So that's about right for this newborn. I didn't really want it to be too big. I wanted it to fit an absolute newborn if I can. So now we're going to start our pattern. So this has got a 2-row repeat, and it's ever so simple. So first of all, the very first thing we're going to do is our stack stitch to get up to the right height. Now I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and in this one here I'm going to put 3 UK treble US doubles, the same as any granny stitch. If you wanted this slightly larger, you can just use a little yarn that's a little bit thicker. This is quite a thin DK yarn, or you could up the hook size if you wanted it for a larger newborn. But so what we're going to do now is skip 2 and 3 in the next one. And we're going to do that all the way around. Skip 2, 3 in the next one. Skip 2 and then 3. Okay, so I'm going to carry on doing that all the way around until I get to this last part, and I will come back then. I'm going to pause the video, come back and show you what to do when we get back to here. Okay, so I'm all the way around and it's cupping, which I want it to do, so that's perfectly normal. Okay, and we are now back at our first 1 stitch. Now it looks a little odd in this round. It gets easier in subsequent rounds. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so I can show you. So there is the stitch that this has come out of. We're going to do 2 in there. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of our first stitch. So it looks identical. It's going to be seamless. Okay, so now we're going to do a stack, but we're going to do it into this gap. This is our second row, so of our repeat. Okay, but in there we're going to put 3 stitches, so 2 UK trebles. I hope I didn't go off camera being all zoomed in like this. I didn't remember that I was zoomed. I'm going to unzoom and do this again just in case. Okay, we're back to where we were. And what we're going to do is we're going to, into this gap, we're going to make our stack. I may not have gone off camera, but I just can't take that chance. Okay, so we're going to put 2 stitches with that stack into this first space. Now we're going to go in between, just as like a normal granny, in between each segment, shell, whatever you want to call it. Sorry about that. My equipment failed. So, yeah, and in between each one, we are going to put 3 UK treble, US double crochets all the way around. So, I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you again once I get back to our very first stitch. Okay, so I'm all the way around and now I'm just going to slip stitch into, not slip stitch, sorry. I'm going to go into my first stitch, pull up a loop. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those. And the reason for that is I want to be able to go into this gap to do a repeat of this row. So I'm going to go back in, pull up a loop and do my stack stitch. But I'm only going to do 1. So this is a repeat of this row where I do my first one only. And then in the next one, I'm going to do my 3. This is how we make it so it's seam free, by alternating these 2 rows. And we can't tell at all where our join is. Okay. So I'm going to go all the way around then, and I'll catch up with you and we'll finish off this one here when we get all the way around. Okay, so I'm back and there's my first one. I'm going to finish off with my next 2 in the same space. It's much easier when you're going into a granny to do this, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my first stitch. You think I'd have learnt by now not to make them too tight. It will go in. There we are. Okay, so then we're going to, in this one here, make our stack, and that's our repeat. So this time around, as we've gone into our granny hole, we're going to make 3 stitches. So that's the 2 row repeat, alternating between making the 1 stitch, making the 3. So we want to go with a total of 6 granny rounds. So I'm going to pause the video, and this one is my 4th, so I shall catch up with you once I've finished my 6 rounds altogether of granny stitches. Okay, so now I have 6 rounds of granny stitch. I'm going to measure it across. So as this is a really small newborn, that's about right, the measurement to kind of, so all the way around it's about 12 inches. Or if you go into the biggest part of the head, that would be about 13 inches. That's right. So I know all newborns come in various shapes and sizes, but this one is a nice tiny one. Okay, so now I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch, and we're going to do 2 rounds of half treble in the UK, which is half double in the US. So I'm going to do a chain, cinch it right down. I don't want it to stick up, and I'm just going to do my very first one. This loop doesn't have to be tight, nice and not loose but free, and I'm just going to go all the way around, and this will pull that in just a little bit, but not so that it's tight. It will just pull all these stitches together a little bit. It will still have stretch and give, but I'm going to do that all the way around and every single stitch. So I'm going to pause it, and I will catch up with you when I get back to the beginning again. Okay, so I'm all the way around, and I'm going to slip stitch into my first one, going into the 2 loops. For some reason I'm having trouble doing that on camera today. Don't normally. Okay, so again I'm going to chain 1, cinch it right down. Don't want it to count in any way. Not a tight loop, and I'm still struggling to get even, though I'm not doing a tight loop. And I'm going to do another one in each stitch all the way around, just as before. So again, I shall pause it and meet up with you when I get back to the start, and we'll take a look at it at that point. I'm all the way around again, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to slip stitch, but just for a moment I'm going to look at this. So that's pulled in quite nicely at the bottom there. It's kind of tapering in. I don't feel like we need one more round, because when I measure this, I want it to be about 4.5, well, roughly 4.5 inches. Let's get that in the, that's not quite right. There we go. So this is from the start, and if I did another one, it would just be over the 4.5 inches. It's just slightly under. We're here, so it is kind of up to you whether you look at it and you think that could do with another one or not, and it might be a good idea to try it on the baby, and then you get a rough idea as to whether you need one more row of half trebles, half doubles or not. But I'm not going to do one now. I'm going to leave that. So what I'm going to do now is, you could slip stitch into that and break off your yarn, but I'm going to do it in the invisible way. So I'm going to pull my yarn through, so it's just pulled through the stitch, and I'm going to grab my darning needle and going to do it so that the end, the actual row, looks identical all the way along. I don't know how people manage to do this. That wizardry, I don't know. I always struggle. Thank goodness for thumbnails. That's the only way I get it in. Okay, so this here is the top of my first stitch. That's just the cinch down chain. This is the top, so I'm going to go front to back through both loops with my needle. And then I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to go front to back through the back one only, just this one here. Oh, I actually managed to loop it, trying to get it out of the way for you, and I looped it. So now you can see that is identical, but you need to hold it tight in that position while you secure it at the back. So I'm going to just secure it by making a loop, and then I'm going to go back through that. I'm going to pull it tight. So now that looks exactly the same. And now all I need to do is bury this tail along my row of stitches, if I can get it in, that is. There we are. You know, when you do these things not on camera, they go really, really well. And when you're going to show somebody, they go really, really bad. Maybe it's just me. I think it might just be me. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit back the other way and cut that off. And then don't forget, inside we have our magic loop. We need to secure that, otherwise it will start unraveling. I always feel jealous of those people that just seem to get this in. It's just, I have a fatter one, but this is quite thin yarn and quite a delicate thing, so I didn't really want a big fat needle. So I'm going to pull that as tight as I can, and I'm just going to go back through the last couple, or just even one, it doesn't really matter. Just get as much of that as I can. Make that loop, go back through it the other way, and pull it tight, and it becomes a knot. You can do that again if you want to, just to make it extra secure. Make that loop. Ooh, before it disappears, we'll go back through the loop, pull it tight. That's definitely a knot to be, not to be reckoned with. Not to be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make a joke. And then we're just going to bury this in that centre, and it shall never see the light of day again. You can just go through as many times as you want to, and then we'll snip it off carefully, turn it in the right way, and we've got a perfect little granny beanie. And you can't see the seam at all. So that's done. So yeah, I'm going to do some more. I'm going to do a preemie one. I'm going to do a next couple of sizes, remembering that this is newborn, so I'm going to do 0 to 3 months and so on. So thank you for watching. Sorry my equipment failed halfway through. Hope it isn't too bad. I'll watch it back, and if it is, I will have to edit that out somehow. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.